Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because I am finally sharing how I edit my Instagram photos, how I take them, what apps I use, like all of that good stuff. And it has been such a highly requested topic for the longest time. And I feel so bad that it's taken me so long to make this video, but I promise I was not trying to hold out on you guys. I was just trying to figure out the best and easiest way to share it with you guys. And I feel like my editing has changed so much over like the last year and a half or so, and it's gotten a lot more minimal. So I even considered presets for a second, but then I didn't want to put out presets that were like such a minimal adjustment. So I finally decided that just like sitting down and actually editing, screen recording myself so I can show you guys what I'm doing was the easiest way to share. So we are just gonna get into it. Okay. So I have my little notes here. First things first, I shoot about 99% of my photos on my iPhone. I definitely went through a period where I was shooting on a professional camera, but right before like COVID hit and quarantine happened and all that, my camera actually broke, and then I couldn't get it fixed because everything was closed down. So I switched over to iPhone out of necessity, and I just haven't gone back. I've gotten my camera fixed and I've just kind of like turned into an iPhone girl all over again. So 99% of my photos are shot on this. I have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and I kind of make it a point to upgrade every time they come out with a new phone, just because it is the tool that I take all of my content on. So I feel like it's important for me to have the newest phone with the best camera. But I will say a lot of the times when the new phone comes out, for the first like few weeks or months, they have to like work out the kinks. So might be best to wait a little bit, but I do definitely think that like the newer phones, the camera is superior. There's like a really small percentage of the time when I'll shoot a photo on my vlog camera, which is the Canon G7X. So I'll have that link down below. It is really nice sometimes when the light is too harsh. It kind of softens it a bit and makes things look a little bit better. So it is nice to have that as a backup sometimes. But the other thing I think that's super important is just getting good lighting when you're shooting, because if you have good lighting, then your photo is going to require such minimal edits. So I think the key is just figuring out how to find the light and what light you like to shoot in. So personally, I really love afternoon light. Like I shoot in the afternoon or like golden hour as much as I can possibly get away with. So like right now in LA, the sun goes down around 8 p.m. That's when sunset is. So I'll typically shoot anytime from like 3 or 4 p.m. on, because those last few hours of the day, the sun is a lot less harsh, and you can even shoot in direct sunlight without it being like way too contrasty and shadowy. I steer clear completely of the middle of the day unless I'm like indoors or in a car or under an umbrella or something like that. I won't shoot in the middle of the day because the sun is going to be directly overhead, so it's going to be super harsh. It's going to cast a lot of shadows, and the colors are just going to be like super contrasty, and that's not what I prefer. And then I do like morning light. I'm not a morning person, so I don't shoot in the morning that often, but morning light is also very beautiful. So I think that's the most important thing. If you are shooting when it's brighter out, another tip is to shoot in open shade. So what that means is you're gonna wanna face the direction that the sun is coming from, so the light is like on you and illuminating your face and whatnot, and illuminating the way that you're taking the photo, but you wanna be in the shade. So whether that's like on the side of a building where you're in the shadows, or whether you're under an overhang, under an umbrella, like something of that sort, so you wanna be in the shade but facing the direction that the sun is. And that's how you're gonna find the best light. There's definitely exceptions, like sometimes the sun is reflecting off of something and it can change where the good lighting is. So I will literally like hold up my iPhone in front of my face with the camera on, and I'll just spin around in a circle like this until I see where the lighting is the best. And that really good light is gonna make your skin look like glowy and flawless, and that's what we're going for, because then that requires minimal edits. There's definitely exceptions and times when I just want to get a photo done, or I just want to use a certain background, but for the most part, that's my golden rule on lighting. What else? I think another big part of my content and why it looks the way it looks is because I also go for like very specific backgrounds. So lately I've been into like more minimal, neutral backgrounds, just like things that are clean and simple. I try to stay away from anything that's too busy, and like just like any random objects in the background. I try to stay away from that. Obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part I look for like clean, simple, uncluttered, neutral things. And when I shoot, I always have like the grid on. It's an option under the camera settings in your iPhone. So I always have that grid option on. And like my rule of thumb is if you're looking at the grid, I'll like insert a little clip for you guys here. But if you're looking at the grid, when I'm shooting my phone, I like my feet to be near the bottom of the frame, like maybe a little bit of room below them, but then I like a ton of room above my head. So like the whole top third of the grid, I like to pretty much just be space above my head if I'm shooting like a full body shot or a half body shot from like my knees up for the most part. And obviously if it's a different shot, then I don't always apply that rule, but I do always think that space above my head, it just gives you more room to work with. If you want to crop a certain way, you can always zoom in. And if you need to like adjust the photo at all. And also I just think it looks cleaner in the feed when there's a little bit more space throughout instead of just like your head taking up the entire frame. So that's another golden rule for me. And then I quickly just want to talk about the two apps that I use for videos. I'm not going to edit any videos with you guys today, but I use InShot to like cut things up and make short edits. Like if I'm just posting a video to my stories and it's like 30 seconds long, I would never edit a full video on my phone. And then I use the Tezza app to do like vibey edits, to add like a vintage feel or grain or like a stop motion kind of thing. I get a lot of questions whenever I post stop motion videos, and I always do all of that kind of stuff in the Tezza app. That's pretty much it for, I feel like, the basics. And now I'm just gonna edit a few photos with you guys. So I picked a couple like popular photos from my feed, so you guys have probably already seen all of these. And I'm just gonna go through how I edit because it is like slightly different for every photo, but I do have like a few basic things that I do to pretty much every photo. So I'll just show you the different tweaks and what apps I use, and yeah. Okay, so first things first, I pretty much edit all of my photos in Lightroom, and that's usually my first step. So I'm gonna go and edit this photo first because this is an example of a photo that was taken in like perfect lighting. So it's gonna be a super minimal edit. And this is just like my basic, quick few steps. So as you can see, because I'm in the car and so I'm in the shade, but like I have all the light coming in from all the windows of the car, the lighting was super glowy and it kind of just made everything look very flawless. So we're only gonna make a few minor tweaks. I typically lower the contrast a bit just because it softens everything and I just feel like I really like how that looks. I will also lower the highlights a bit because it gives the photo a little bit of a moodier feel and also sometimes makes it colored a little bit more vibrant. And then I also take the blacks down because I feel like that brings out my hair and my eyebrows a bit, and sometimes they can just get lighter and I feel like my features pop more when the blacks are down. And then I always add grain as well. This sort of like depends on the shot, but I feel like 30 is a good benchmark of how much grain I add, and then I'll like zoom in and see if I need more or less, if it's like overpowering the photo. I feel like when it takes the blacks down a little bit more, also gives it like a moodier feel. And I feel like that is pretty much it. I don't think I did anything else to this photo. So you can see the before and after. It's really subtle. So I've truly been like barely editing my photos and just looking for the good light, and this is an example of like the most basic edit I would do. Then I go ahead and export to camera roll, and then I would add it into my feed planner app. I also always crop the photos and do any like straightening or anything like that before I put it into my feed planning app so I can see exactly how it will look. So 8x10 is the size of an Instagram crop, and then you can see like I'll adjust. So I'll usually bring it all the way down, and then, you know, if you need to like straighten anything, and then I would go ahead and add this into my feed. I use Unum to plan my feed. I'll show you guys quickly. I already posted this one, but I would just like import it, and then this is how I like sort of plan out my feed and see what photos are gonna go next. I recently switched over to Unum because the app I was using for the last 4 years was discontinued in the App Store, so they stopped making updates for it and it just got glitchy. Okay, now we are going to add another photo that might be like a tiny bit more complicated. So let's do this one. Okay, so this is the photo without any edits on it. I'm gonna go in and do some of the same steps. So take down the contrast a little bit, lower the highlights, the blacks, don't need quite as much in this photo. And then I have a weird thing with blue in my feed. I just really don't like it. So I usually either turn down the saturation of the blue, or I will turn up the luminance. Sometimes I do a little bit of both, but in this photo you can see my bathing suit's blue, so it makes it a little bit trickier because I don't want to take away the color of my suit. So I'll just kind of play around with it, but if there's any sky in my photo, I usually prefer it to be a lighter, softer blue, not so like vibrant. I just don't love how the vibrant blue looks in my feed at all. So I'll like keep playing around with that. That's probably the thing I adjust the most. And then I'm going to add some grain. I feel like this one can use a little more. And you can see the before and after on that. So this one, definitely a little bit of a more drastic edit, but still pretty minimal. Exporting that. Okay, now I'm gonna show you guys an example where I would use like multiple apps to edit this photo. So I am pulling up this one. Before I do anything in Lightroom, I actually want to remove this little black box that's on the wall, just so it like cleans everything up a bit and there's not as much in the background. So I would use the app Retouch for that. So I go and pull up the photo. Usually if I'm removing anything out of the background, I like that to be the first step. Okay, so I usually do quick repair, and you just highlight the object and then it removes it for you. If you're not happy with it, you can always redo it. So sometimes I'll do it a couple times until it looks the most natural. And then you can just like play around with fixing it. There are times when I'll like sit there and do this over and over and over for like 5 minutes straight, but I feel like that's the before and after, and that's definitely a little bit cleaner than just having that black box in my photo. So we are going to export that and then open it back up in Lightroom without the little box. And then for this one, you can see the lighting wasn't really as good on this photo. So like the quality is not as nice because the lighting wasn't as fresh. and then like it kind of highlights all the imperfections on my face because I clearly was not in that glowy good lighting, but sometimes I'm just committed to using a photo. So my way of fixing this, I'm gonna show you. First thing I'm gonna do is I can go in and turn down the texture. If you see, if I did that all the way, obviously it erases all the imperfections, but it also kind of makes me look like a fake porcelain doll. So I'm just gonna do that like a little bit just to try and minimize. And then I'm also going to turn down the contrast on this one. Don't want to do it too much because it like messes with the color of my skin. Again, taking down the highlights a bit and the blacks a tiny bit. And then going to go and add grain. I'm gonna add a little bit less grain on this one because I know I'm gonna put it in another app afterwards that also adds grain. Okay, so I'm gonna export that. And then I am going to open it in Dayscam. And this is the app that I use for like mimicking film edits, kind of making things look just like vintagey and vibey. Has a bunch of different settings and you can mess around with all of them. So I love that. So when you import a photo, it automatically puts an edit on it for you, but you can completely customize it. And you just kind of like learn what all these things do. But the first step is the filter and the intensity. So I'll like kind of play around with which one of these I think is best. Okay, I think we're gonna go with this one. Put it like there. And then glass just kind of like gives it that like 3D effect. So I'll turn that up a bit. And then blur makes it super like vibey and blurred. I'm gonna add grain. Just like playing around with the darkness around the edges here. And then you can see the difference. And then you can also barely notice the like texture and the weird lighting on my face and chest now. So that's kind of why I wanted to do an edit like this. And then I would just save that and upload into my feed. Okay, and then I'm going to do one more. So this is gonna be the last one I edit. And I'm gonna go in and do a lot of the same steps. Turn down the contrast a bit, turn down the highlights, the blacks. Go in and add lots of grain. And then I'm also gonna go in and play with the blues a little bit since there's so much sky in this photo. Turn up the luminance. And then you can see my dress kind of picks up some of the blue. If you're wearing white, a lot of the times it will. So I don't really want the sky to like turn gray. So I'm not gonna mess with the saturation on this one. Okay, And then I should have done this beforehand, but I'm gonna export that, and I am going to go into the Retouch app and use it to remove some of the trash on the ground. This app is literally the best for removing anything like people out of the background of your photos, like zits, anything that you don't want. So I'm just gonna go and get that. And then you can also like clean up any imperfections. And that looks good, so we're going to export it. And then this is another example of why I prefer to shoot with a little bit more room, because now when you go in to crop the photo, I have like so much room to work with. I can decide if I want to shoot it, if I want to zoom in, if I want to make it a little bit off center. Like, I just have a lot more to work with, as opposed to if I had shot it, a lot closer. So we're gonna leave it like that. And that's it. So those are pretty much the basics. Those are the apps that I go to the most, and pretty much the steps that I follow for all my photos. Obviously, everything's a little bit different, so if I need to tweak the lighting or the coloring, some photos will require a little bit more, a little bit less, but I do hope that this was super helpful for you guys, and definitely like how you're shooting your photos and the lighting and all of that plays a huge role in how they're gonna come out, not just the editing. But let me know if you guys have any specific questions, drop them down below, and I'm so glad that I finally could share this with you guys.